When you're scrolling through social media and you see some life coach talking about, manifesting your reality or the law of attraction, well, what if I told you that almost every single major concept in modern personal development wasn't actually invented in the 21st century? It was actually codified way back over 100 years ago. Welcome to This Explainer. Today we're diving into Ralph Waldo Trine's seminal 1897 text, In Tune with the Infinite. We're going to uncover the completely forgotten roots of today's billion-dollar self-help industry and really explore a profound spiritual philosophy that is honestly shockingly relevant to our modern lives right now. Okay, here is our roadmap for today. First step, the infinite golden thread. Then, thoughts are living forces. Third, the mind-body connection. Fourth, the law of attraction. And finally, love as the ultimate force.
Let's jump right into part one, the infinite golden thread connecting to the source.
So, to really wrap our heads around this whole philosophy, we first have to grasp what Trine calls the golden thread. He argues there's this singular, unbreakable thread running through literally all lives, all major religions, and the teachings of the world's absolute greatest thinkers. And this thread? It's the idea that our conscious connection to an infinite source of life dictates our entire reality, the whole shebang. Now, when you actually recognize that thread, you become what Trine calls an optimist. And an optimist operates from a place of, well, superior wisdom. They see the big picture. They see things in their entirety and how everything relates. And because of this really deep connection, they actively build their own harmony. But on the flip side, we have the pessimist. The pessimist is kind of darkened by ignorance, right? They're looking at the world through a deeply limited, completely fragmented point of view. By totally ignoring that golden thread of connection, they're actively constructing their own suffering, literally hour by hour. Now this is where it gets really fascinating. The word origins here completely redefine how we understand suffering and joy. I mean, we often carry so much heavy theological baggage around the concepts of heaven and hell, right? We view them as these distant afterlife destinations. But Trine, he strips all of that away. He frames them as psychological states that you are creating right now, today. Heaven is simply harmony. It's being in right relation with the universe and actually recognizing your connection to it. Hell, on the other hand, well, it comes from the Old English word helen, which literally means to build a wall around yourself, to separate or to be shut off. I mean, think about how profound that is when you apply it to our modern epidemic of loneliness and anxiety. When we isolate ourselves, when we sever that connection to the broader world and that infinite source of life, we are essentially building a wall around ourselves. We're actively constructing our own isolation. Okay, picture this. Imagine a beautiful, vibrant lotus pond sitting on a huge, sprawling farm. Now, this pond doesn't just sustain itself out of nowhere. It gets its fresh water from a massive, inexhaustible mountain reservoir high up above it. That reservoir represents the infinite source of all life and energy. Now, here's the kicker. The human mind acts as a literal mechanical gate or valve. It controls the flow of that divine, rushing water down into your physical body, which in this metaphor is the lotus pond. So, when your mental gate is wide open, the water just rushes in. The lotus flowers bloom, the water's crystal clear, and there's so much vital abundance that it actually overflows into the neighboring fields, which represents your outward reality and how you affect the people around you. But what happens if you let ignorance, fear, or just general negativity snap that valve shut? Well, the fresh water stops. And very quickly, the pond stagnates. The vibrant flowers wilt, the water turns totally murky, and your outward reality really suffers. Your mind is the mechanism. You have the absolute power to open or close that valve exactly as you choose, which completely determines the flow of vitality into your life. Moving right along to part two, thoughts are living forces, the power of mind.
So this brings us to a quote from 1897 that honestly belongs on a modern-day bumper sticker. It perfectly explains how that mental valve actually operates. Thoughts are forces. Like builds like, and like attracts like. Trine makes it absolutely 100% clear that our thoughts are not just passing abstractions. They aren't just harmless daydreams or, temporary little moods. No, they are vital, irresistible, highly creative forces that actively mold the material universe around us. Just think about it for a second. Every towering stone castle, every revolutionary invention, every complex situation you currently find yourself navigating right now, it all had its birth first in the unseen, silent realm of thought. A thought is literally the invisible blueprint before the physical structure is ever built. But how do we actually harness these powerful thought forces? Well, Trine asserts that we absolutely must cultivate our intuition. He defines intuition as this inner spiritual sense that opens inwardly to direct revelation and knowledge, just like our physical eyes and ears open outwardly to the physical world. Now, in 1897, the world was for sure a lot quieter, but today, we are constantly, endlessly bombarded by digital noise, the notifications, the emails, the crazy 24-hour news cycle. Because of that, Trine's advice is honestly more critical now than it ever was. We have to intentionally quiet the noise of the outside world. When we finally silence all that external chaos, this inner voice, which he sometimes calls the voice of the soul, guides us with absolute certainty. We don't have to endlessly rely on external validation or Googling every little thing if we can just learn to tune in to this remarkably accurate internal guidance system.
All right, section 3, the mind-body connection, thoughts materializing in the flesh.
So let me ask you something. Can a fit of fear or anger literally poison your physical body? I know, it sounds incredibly extreme, but Trine actually dared to ask this well over a century ago. Long before modern psychosomatic medicine was even a thing, he challenged his readers to consider if their everyday gruggas, their workplace anxieties, and their simmering frustrations were secretly tearing their bodies apart from the inside out. It was such a radical idea at the time, this concept that all physical life unfolds from the within out. As within, so without. Your physical health is really just an echo of your mental state. He actually describes chronic negative emotions as a toxic bodily thunderstorm that completely ravages the physical form. Now, the 19th century science he cites here is absolutely fascinating and, okay, maybe a bit dramatic by today's standards. He references claims that extreme anger changes the chemical properties of your saliva into literal poison, or that a sudden violent emotion can instantly weaken the heart and produce jaundice. He even writes about how the sudden cold sweats of guilt could be chemically distinguished in a laboratory. And sure, while we might chuckle a bit at some of the hyper-specific medical assumptions of 1897, his core underlying principle, it is universally validated by modern science today. We now know, definitively, that chronic stress, high cortisol levels, and lingering negative emotions create a highly destructive inflammatory physical environment in the body. That thunderstorm, it is very, very real. Because of all this, the mind really has to be viewed as the natural protector of the body. And Trine suggests something incredibly visionary here. He says the true physician of the future won't just focus on treating the physical body with drugs. Why? Well, because drugs often only remove the physical obstructions temporarily, right? They treat the symptom, but not the source. Instead, the future physician is going to focus on medicating the mind with principles. Think about someone suffering from chronic stress-induced ulcers. Simply popping an antacid doesn't solve the underlying raging anxiety. The future of medicine involves teaching us that sick thoughts and discordant moods are the natural atmosphere of disease. By fundamentally changing that mental atmosphere, the physical body naturally and inevitably heals itself. Which brings us to section 4. The law of attraction, like attracts like. This law of correspondence between our internal spiritual states and our external material reality is wonderfully and sometimes brutally exact. Our ruling moods literally crystallize into the physical world around us. So if someone's ruling mood is just constant gloom and despondency, they naturally repel opportunity, they attract failure, and they usually end up feeling like a heavy burden to others. But conversely, when someone maintains a disciplined mood of hope, confidence, and cheer, they act like a literal magnet for the elements of success that are favorable to their purpose. And Trine takes this incredibly far. He notes that a person's physical surroundings are really nothing more than physical advertisements of their mental state. The rags a person wears, the tatters in their home, even the unkempt dirt in their front yard, these are outward manifestations of hopelessness and carelessness. As Trine so powerfully puts it, the dirt is in the mind long before it is ever on the body. Now, one of the most surprising claims in Trine's entire philosophy surrounds the number 120. Get this. Based on the biological structure of the human body and by comparing our maturation rates to other animals, he argues that the natural, unhindered age of the human body should actually be closer to 120 years. So why is that so rarely the case? Why do we break down so much earlier than that? Well, Trine argues that we are constantly sabotaging our own biology through negative thoughts, daily fears, and something he calls a race belief. A race belief is basically that deeply ingrained societal programming that tells us, hey, we're supposed to start breaking down, getting weak, and going downhill the second we hit a certain middle age. And because we expect to age prematurely, we literally command our cellular structure to do exactly that. We accept the societal limitation, we close off that valve of vitality, and we literally age our bodies through our own expectations. Crazy, right? Finally, we arrive at Section 5, love as the ultimate force, transmuting enemies. Once we truly understand the mechanics of thought and connection, the way we treat other people becomes a matter of absolute self-interest. There is this stark, visceral contrast between selfishness and universal love. Selfishness is rooted entirely in ignorance. It's the action of a person who just doesn't realize that we are all drinking from the exact same infinite reservoir. Think of selfishness kind of like an ice cube, right? It's a contracting, corroding, isolating force that literally tears down the physical organism of the person holding on to it. It breeds hatred and a living death. Universal love, however, acts like radiant heat. It is incredibly expansive. It recognizes our fundamental oneness. When you send out genuine love, it physically stimulates your own bodily health, elevating both the sender and the receiver at the exact same time. And listen, this isn't just fluffy, poetic idealism. It's actually a highly practical self-defense mechanism for your daily life. Because what actually happens when someone actively hates you or directs real malice your way? Trine outlines a super clear 4-step structural response. First, if an enemy directs anger at you and you respond by trying to get even, you immediately sink down to their frequency. You absorb all of that toxic energy right into your own lotus pond. But if you respond strictly with thoughts of love and goodwill, you are putting up a literal, impenetrable shield. That high-frequency positive energy totally neutralizes the hatred, ensuring it cannot mentally or physically reach you. And even more remarkably, by refusing to drop your frequency and just holding on to that radiant love, you have the energetic power to actually elevate that other person, ultimately transmuting an enemy into a friend. We've explored a pretty profound system today, a system where your mind acts as a literal valve, completely capable of letting in an infinite supply of vitality or shutting it off completely through fear and isolation. Remember, every single thought you entertain is a literal building block for your reality. So as we close this explainer, I want to leave you with a deeply provocative challenge, directly from Trine's philosophy. I want you to take a moment and evaluate the exact thoughts you are holding right now, today, in this very hour. Are they thoughts of harmony and connection, or are they thoughts of fear and separation? Because based on those precise thoughts, which of these two realities are you choosing to construct? Are you building a heaven, or are you building a hell today?